Illegal immigration into the United States is at its highest levels ever. Tens of millions of people have come here illegally over the past 15 years, and none of them will ever leave. Mostly they come from the poorest countries on the planet. We don't know anything about them, really. We don't know if they're pro-America. We don't know if they're hostile to the people who already live here. We don't know, in the case of the recent arrivals, what they're going to do for a living as robotics eliminate low-skilled jobs. So what's happening right now at the border, though it's often mentioned on TV, is really undersold as a story. This is changing America forever, and almost certainly for the worse, as we're watching it, and no one is doing anything about it. The governor of Texas occasionally makes noises about it. It's over his border that this human wave is flowing, and yet he's taken no real steps to stop it. There are some media outlets that let you know that it's happening in general terms, but they don't seem particularly outraged by it. We're sitting here as our country is destroyed and no one's responding. And at some point you have to ask, why? Are the majority of Americans in favor of this? Of course not. In fact, no one's in favor of this. No one will defend this in public. No one will explain why we need it, why it's a good idea, how it's going to help this country, how your grandchildren will live in a better place because of it. People are just silent, like it's not even happening. And again, you have to ask why. And the answer, of course, is really simple, because they're afraid. They know they'll be punished if they say anything about it. The story of Peter and Lydia Brimelow explains why they're afraid. Peter Brimelow has been a journalist for 50 years, worked at a whole bunch of what are now called mainstream publications, was an editor there, Barron's, Forbes, National Review, Dow Jones, a legitimate old-school journalist. And in the late 90s, he began to ask questions about our immigration scheme. Is this really a good idea? Is it helping America? And of course, no one could answer those questions because the answer is obvious. No, it's destroying America, as it destroyed California. So it will destroy your state. That's certain. But for asking that question, he was fired from his jobs and shunted off into what we call the fringes. But he didn't stop. He started a website called VDare.com. He runs it now with his wife, Lydia. And for the crime in the supposedly free country of opposing the immigration system currently in place, not the official system, but the actual system, where anyone from the poorest parts of America with no skills whatsoever can come here and immediately go on welfare, that's our current system, for saying that that's a bad idea, powerful forces have just tried to destroy their lives. Not just their lives, the lives of their family, using the justice system to do it. And needless to say, you probably guessed this, using something called the Southern Poverty Law Center, which has nothing to do with the South or poverty. It has to do with shutting down free speech in this country. They have descended on the Brimelows and have really kind of tried to destroy them. That's not an overstatement, but you judge for yourself. Because Lydia Brimelow, who helps run VDare, joins us now to explain what's happened to her. Lydia, thanks so much for coming on. So,
thank you so much, Tucker. It'll be very nice to have our story told.
So I have known your husband sort of since he was not a controversial figure at all. And he became a controversial figure when he began to say things like, hey, why are we doing this? And he was immediately called a white nationalist, a white supremacist. And I remember very well his response, which is, no, I'm not. And if I was, I'd say so. But that kept up, and he wound up publishing with you VDare online. That would seem not a particularly controversial thing to do in a free country, but for your family, it's been a very risky thing to do. So I hope that you will just, if you would, explain to us what the government, we'll start with the government, is trying to do to you for daring to oppose the immigration system.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's hard to believe. Everybody who hears this story says it's completely incredible. Peter founded VDare Foundation, which has its main project of VDare.com back in the late 90s. As you said, we're in our 25th year now, and I joined about 10 years ago. I do the fundraising and the back office work, and he handles everything that goes up on the website, VDare.com. We're a nonprofit journalism enterprise, so everything that we do, all of our people are paid through generous donations from individuals. I can tell you we don't get any government grants or big foundation grants either. It's all just grassroots. And we're veterans of cancel culture at this point. So we've been kicked off a lot of mainstream services that most people use to distribute the media that they produce. And that is nothing compared to what we're facing right now, which started about 2 years ago. originating out of the Hate Crimes Division in the state of New York. A series of subpoenas were issued by Letitia James, first to Facebook, which I can explain a little bit in a minute, and then to us and our board members at VDARE Foundation, with no clear trigger. They have refused to tell us what they're investigating. It's been 2 years of us just being crushed under this burden of investigation. The subpoenas were like 47 points each. They want us to turn over essentially every document that we have interacted with since 2016. And for a small organization, you know, at our peak, we had 4 full-time employees. Right now we have 2. That's Peter and myself. This has just been an absolutely crushing burden. And I will say the Facebook subpoena was interesting because we had actually been kicked off of Facebook years previous. So we had not even been on Facebook to interact with Facebook in many years. And they were asking for all of the data that VDARE had ever accumulated, created while we were on Facebook, which we had incidentally also requested. VDARE was kicked off of Facebook the same day that every one of the people involved in our organization was kicked off, including myself. I had never posted anything political online at all, but they took all my baby pictures, the video of my daughter's first steps, which was not saved anywhere else. Facebook still has that. They have in fact told my lawyers that we are too dangerous to get our data back, including my daughter taking her first steps. So that was the first subpoena that Letitia James through the Hate Crimes Division,
may I ask you to pause for one
issued.
moment and just clarify something? So Facebook has called
Sure.
you too dangerous to possess your own baby pictures. Has VDARE advocated violence? Is there something we're missing for terrorism?
Never.
Insurrection, killing people?
Never.
Okay. Sorry,
No,
I just want to clarify that.
We've never even been accused of doing that, right? I mean, people use these scare smear words all the time: white nationalist, white supremacist, racist, xenophobe, whatever the flavor of the day is. So we get accused of being those things all the time, which we would argue we are not. But violence is something we have never been associated with. We're even careful to talk about the national divorce because of what implications that might have. I mean,
Yes.
we're living in a very high tension environment right now politically. And I think it's important that people choose their words very carefully and choose their actions very carefully. I think it's entirely justified that a large portion of the American population feels drawn to activism right now, but it needs to be chosen very carefully.
Yes.
And once you destroy something, you can't take it back. And our enemies
right.
should remember that too. Once they destroy us, what are they going to do then? But to go back to the subpoenas, we have our mainstream, when I say mainstream, what I mean is like in normal times when VDARE is just surviving cancel culture and putting out this message that demography is destiny and that America is legitimate and real, that we're a true culture and we have a national identity that's worth defending, and that immigration has massive negative effects that nobody's talking about. Our operation is about $800,000 a year. In the last 12 months, we've had to spend $500,000 just complying with the subpoenas that Letitia James's office has put out because the redactions are so heavy and because once we hire a lawyer, then they say, well, we need to have a specialist doing this. You need to have a vendor who's going to index all of these, many, many thousands of documents, all this kind of thing. So it is just killing us. Let alone, on the one hand, there's the resource of the human level of it, right? If I'm spending all my time sorting through documents from 2016, I cannot be fundraising.
But what is the crime?
With my team about what we're going to publish next.
You'll excuse my bad interviewing habits here. I never asked you what the crime you're alleged to have committed is. Like on what pretext is this happening?
That's what my lawyers have been asking. That's what my lawyers have been asking. So there have been no accusations. We have been desperately requesting that they tell us what it is they're wondering about so that we can provide them with tailored, rather than dumping them with this huge amount of data, can we just provide you what it is that you're worried about in terms of regulation? And they refuse to do it. At first they insinuated that it has to do with what we call the Castle transaction. So the backstory on that is that around the time Trump was campaigning and electing, we were attempting as the VDARE Foundation to host conferences around the country We tried it in Tucson, in California.